God, it's like I haven't done it in ages. Suddenly I've lost
hope.
Okay. Hi!
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Yes, it's been a while.
It has.
We realise.
Life has happened.
Yes.
I've been vaccinated.
I've been double vaccinated.
You've been double vaccinated. It's
if
all
you
happening.
haven't, go get your jabs. I'm not making
Do
this
it.
political. It's just a thing. But welcome back!
First of all, there's some odd like elevator music, and we don't know where it's coming from. It's quite soothing.
It's quite nice, yeah.
No, literally no idea where it's coming from.
So if you're enjoying the Atmos, then let us know, and we might let them know. But, you know,
we'll get some like sound recording.
if
like,
you
pump it
hear
up in
weird
the
shit,
background.
it's not us. It's just where we live.
Anyway, we are doing today, finally, Moonlight.
Moonlight. Yes, finally doing Moonlight. I think we're very excited and also arguably a little bit apprehensive, I would say, to do this one.
I think it's pretty obvious why we're apprehensive.
Yeah, but I think we kind of had this discussion, and I think it'd be really important just to kind of say at the beginning, we like this film and we do think it's important to do, but also we have to understand that we are two white gay men, and no matter how much we can give our opinions about this, we're never going to fully understand the experiences of queer black people. And so we can only give a really half, not even that, perspective on what we're seeing. And there's so much more, I'm sure. There's so many layers to understanding what it's like being a person of color, being queer and coming from that background that, we will probably never really understand. But I think it's really important to definitely highlight those and recognize that, as much as we'd like to give our thoughts and opinions, sometimes we just have to be viewers of something that we can't quite...
We're not well equipped to understand the ins and outs of this one particular story.
There's a lot of, moments in this where I think, especially for us two, it's important just to watch and listen. So I guess as well, what we would love, especially for this one, is your thoughts, your opinions, your experience. Love to hear your experiences and what it means to you to watch this, because it's one thing for us, but it's so much more, I imagine, to so many other people out there who can really relate to these experiences.
Because we did talk about whether or not to do this video for the reasons you just talked about, and what this is an opportunity to kind of start the conversation within our own little community that we've got going on at the moment. And it would not do the queer community justice to skip this video.
Totally. And also in the irony as well, is it's kind of like, making it about us, and that's not what we're trying. But you're absolutely, I don't think it would be justice either. But it would also be stupid to pretend
that we know what we're talking about.
That we know what we're talking about. That we can give a full opinion on a perspective that really, doesn't probably really touch our lives that much. And so
with that in mind, we've kind of picked a small number of scenes which we can probably relate to the most, because they're more about the kind of queer elements of this story. There are many other amazing moments which perhaps don't touch on queer identity and queer relationships so much.
There's probably a lot of points in this film that are far more centered on what it means to be a person of color in a community, and the kind of things that I think we will definitely,
we'll touch on them.
We'll touch on them, but we're not going to pretend that
we know what it's like.
We know what it's like.
So let's go. Let's do it. Moonlight. The kid actors in this are amazing.
Oh, incredible.
He's also amazing in this.
Let your head rest in my hand. Relax. I got you, I promise. I'm not gonna let you go. Yeah, man. Let me tell you something, man. There are black people everywhere. Remember that, okay? No place you can go in the world ain't got no black people. We was the first on this planet. This old lady, she stopped me. said, running around in Moonlight, black boys look blue.
Say your name, Blue.
At some point, you gotta decide for yourself who you gonna be. Can't let nobody make that decision for you.
I really like that scene. It is really complicated because he's basically this kid's like father figure in this movie.
Yeah.
And trying to impart this like advice to him about, you know, you've got to pursue your own path and be your own person and define who you are. And you can't let other people do that for you. But I feel like he himself is almost like influenced by surroundings and things, and then he almost doesn't define himself.
I think it's definitely a comment on like the struggles of trying to find your own identity when, you know, arguably you're kind of stuck having to be someone. It's really interesting because like it's really rare in a lot of sort of queer media in general to see a male father-like figure. Does obviously bring a comment on like on what it means for a young gay person to be able to look up to another man and have them tell you can be anything, you know, anything you want to be. But I think it's also a comment on what a lot of this film touches on and what I've read about is the idea of like sort of perspective of needing to learn to be masculine and be a man at some point comes in. And so it's kind of like this weird, he's looking up to someone who's arguably telling him, you know, you can be who you want to be. But there's also this kind of, I get a real weird undertone of
that's what I mean. It feels contradictory.
Yeah, it does. It feels very contradictory. Yeah.
Like a bit, you know,
absolutely
conflicting.
A lot of when I kind of did a lot of background reading on this film to kind of get perspectives was this huge commentary on the prominence particularly in like black communities in which men having to live up to stereotypes of masculinity is a huge thing. When I watched like Drag Race for the first time, there's this whole scene where Monique Hart just goes like, you can't be black and gay, and everyone in the workroom is like, oh my god, yes. And that was a huge moment for me because I was like, oh, there is this whole other level here that, you know, you and I will not really understand, but it's a huge thing that I think exists and you can't ignore. And I think being obviously a black gay person is far harder. More
challenges and more expectations. If there's more expectations about who you're supposed to be, it's harder to defy those and be your own person if it's not living up to those expectations.
To have him almost say to him, you know, you have to define yourself, but you know, throughout the entire film, we do see that he's so very held down. I think masculinity in general is just like, it's such a toxic thing. It's a toxic thing because I think we can all experience effects of the way in which masculinity, like how it affects people, is so devastating. Like I think so much of what we call masculinity is based on this ever, you know, increasing ladder of trying to tell men and even women sometimes to try and be something that they have to be and not be something that they want to be. To me, that's like this never-ending thing about what masculinity is, and it's so toxic, and it affects communities far worse than other communities. And I just think we have such a weird, you know, concept about that.
It kind of leaks into our community as well in some ways, because the whole kind of like top bottom, like
it's
mask not femme,
wherever you are,
it permeates everything, and it's always nasty.
Yeah, that's that.
That's men.
That's men, basically.
Hell no. Come on, you know I ain't gonna let that happen, man. Good. You got the fucking car. Calm down. You shut the fuck up. What's wrong with you?
Who the hell you think you is? You gonna raise my son now? Huh?
You gonna raise him?
You gonna keep selling me rocks? I'm getting it from you. You gonna tell him why the other boys kick his ass all the time? Huh?
In this film, you build up this perception of his mother as, you know, a failure or not a good mother or whatever. But I think, and Naomi Harris is phenomenal, I think in that moment, there's what she's saying is such a valid thing, because it's kind of like, well, you're not perfect either, and you're the person who's also, essentially causing these problems for him. It's like there's no like clear cut good and bad person, and everyone.
There's no perfect role model.
Yeah,
in this movie.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, there isn't.
They've all got their flaws and contradictions in their, in their behaviors and how they interact with each other.
Where do you find the role model for not only growing up queer but growing up black as well? It's where do you find that kind of person that you should be like looking up to or aspiring to or getting advice from? It's set in a particular time, so it's set in 80s Miami, I believe, during a huge drug epidemic that has a huge influence and factor to play in the community that they're living in. You're basically looking at people's lives through so many filters of struggles and realities that you and I doesn't nowadays living where we are and whatever doesn't get to see. And like hell do you ever see this kind of representation in movies, period. Like, it annoys me so, like, if we bring it back to the whole La La Land thing, like, it annoys me so much when people are like, oh, but I don't see why it had to win. And it's like, well, okay, you real talk, like, you're comparing a film which is essentially, just a musical with an pretty much all white cast to a film that literally is talking about so many issues and realities of a very specific, community of people that you never get any representation for. And it's like, if you have to question it, like, then you clearly don't understand why it's important that they won the Oscar, like,
or you probably didn't watch Moonlight.
Or you probably didn't watch it, yeah. Like,
when I was thinking about this movie after we watched it, and we actually discussed it at the time, we were like trying to kind of identify some of the like queer moments that spoke to us. But thinking about this movie as a whole, you can't separate the like black story and the queer story, because in this movie they're presented together, and they're so tightly wound around each other that you just like, you can see glimpses of things that we can relate to, but really it's just like, it's very, I'm sure it's not a unique story, but it's certainly a very specific story.
You can't
unpick them.
Absolutely. You can't pick and choose things when you're seeing this form of representation, because it's a dangerous slope, because it firstly takes away from that person's experience, and it really, like, it's not about that, but it also assumes that you think that you know that person's experience, and it's just not the case. Like, you're so right, you can't pick apart this, because in reality it's everything combined and it's all interwoven. And that's what kind of, probably especially growing up as a queer person anyway, like, your identity isn't just your sexuality. Your identity is formed by your ethnicity, your gender, where you come from, your community, everything about you. To just kind of pick it bit by bit and say, okay, well, I get that and I get that, does a disservice, because it's who you are. And
people are some of their experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that in mind, we've kind of picked a small number of scenes which we can probably relate to the most. Next.
What's a faggot?
A faggot is a word used to make gay people feel bad.
Am I a faggot?
No. You could be gay, but you never let nobody call you no faggot.
How do I know?
You just do.
You'll know when you know.
You gotta know right now. All right?
Do you sell drugs?
Yeah.
And my mom. She do drugs, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a very hard-hitting scene. I was speaking to someone one time, and they were like, that one scene really, really kind of stuck out for them, because they had a very similar conversation at a table. I think it's a very kind of rare thing to have those kind of scenes where children are asking, but you don't see that a lot. And I think it's weird because it comes across really, really harsh, but you know it's also coming from an innocent young mind. You know, we all had to learn what that word was at one point, and we either asked someone or we didn't, and we either got a genuine, honest answer from an adult or we didn't, or we were told to shut up. It's great that he does that. They kind of try and broach it with an authentic, you know, you might be, and yet still he's like, but don't let anyone call you that.
You don't have to figure that out right now. It's just like,
yeah,
when you know, you know.
When you know, you know.
Which I think is like really good advice. All that stuff is put on people too young.
Absolutely. I think what he says in general is really like, they always say, you know, when you're talking to kids, you should just be completely 100% honest with them. I think what's really interesting about that as well is that he also asks about drugs.
Those are two massive things in his life right now that he needs answers for.
Essentially, yeah. You know, one is his identity, the other one is a social influence around him that's affecting his life and his mother's life. Yeah. The two things he can't control, the two things that are essentially what, you know, has kind of shaped him as a person so far. It is a fantastic scene. I think there needs to be...
Sorry. Perhaps slightly undermined by this classic oboe music in the background.
Music right now. It's like trying to bring a light.
Can't you see we're having a moment?
Yeah, honestly. The older guy is also trying to kind of like deal with
his own like conflicting interests. Yeah. I think that's the last time we see him actually in the movie. Oh, spoilers.
I mean, if you haven't seen it, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah.
But do you think you ever had like anything similar in terms of a conversation when you were that young? Because I don't think I did. I don't even remember kind of.
I don't know where I got the word.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where. I probably just from like mates at school, but I imagine it came with all sorts of like negative connotations.
Yeah, undoubtedly it would have come with, you know, an element of bullying. And I think especially for a kid like Chiron, it's not surprising that it's a conversation that he has at that age. It's such a actually young age as well for a kid to kind of like be like, what's this?
Yeah.
Are you trying to get smart with me, huh, Chiron? Yeah, you trying to get smart with me, huh? What you gotta be sorry for?
It's kind of odd seeing that, really, thinking about it.
It is a weird sexual encounter. It's the only one you see in the film, but like it's a weird one because it's like it's both intimate and rough at the same time. There's kissing.
Yeah, it's not like that affectionate, really.
It's not that affectionate, but it is weirdly because there's that moment where they kiss and then it doesn't become very affectionate because it very much becomes like, you know, a first time,
a nice servicing,
a teenage experience, which I think we've all kind of awkwardly had. But then there's that bit where he apologizes and you're like, it's almost as if he was expecting to have to apologize for doing the act. He probably felt like he was going to, you know, he was doing something incredibly wrong.
Shameful.
Shame. It's a shame thing. It's a shame complex. And then just to have Kevin be like, what you got to be sorry for? Like...
I think he's done it before, let's be honest.
Well, that's the thing. It's really interesting with Kevin as well because, like...
So like confident and like blasé about the whole...
He's the only other character in which you're looking at another guy who's also black, who's also in that community, living his gay experience, like living arguably what is potentially a gay experience.
Sex on the Beach.
Sex on the Beach is a bit messy, isn't it?
Wouldn't know.
Would you not? Neither would I.
What?
Well... There was a stony beach one time, but I don't know where that counts. Ooh.
It counts.
Next! Next!
Man, how you doing tonight? What can I get you? Is I wrong? What you doing down here? I mean, it's... Hey, you here now, man. That's all that matters. You ain't changed one damn bit. You still can't say more than 3 words at a time, huh? You don't look like your ass been missing no meals. One chef special, coming right up.
I'm surprised he recognises him, to be honest. Because he went to like juvie, didn't he? And then
Yeah. There's so many moments in this film where it really, really focuses in on the facial receptions of each other, of like how they're reacting when
Also
they're
staring,
lots of staring. And it just screams so much of this kind of like, what's he thinking? But what's he feeling like he can't say? You really get that with Chiron. This presenting, but then this also like, he's got a million thoughts in his head at the same time. I feel like it's almost like a constant fear of acting on those thoughts.
even the hug was like super intense.
Yeah. He's now become what Juan is in the very beginning, and he's chosen to live up to this life, to put on essentially, I think what we can see as like this persona of masculinity to get by. If that means having to also cut off another part of your identity just to get by, then he's chosen to do.
I was talking to someone recently actually about this concept of using so much brain power that like so much of your mind is dedicated to checking yourself and like, am I behaving in a certain way that might be perceived as being gay, or saying something, or is my tone of voice like too effeminate? Like all these thoughts are going on at the same time, and you kind of assume that you can get away with it, but you can't. There's a cost to it. Like you aren't really there in the room. You're not able to contribute to your fullest because half of your brain is like focused on like this constant obsession of like not being too effeminate, or not like revealing that part of yourself. Which is probably why I sit down quiet.
There's always a degree of like putting on something with everyone. We always like create personas, but there's a difference between the ones that we're comfortable with and the ones that we decide to use to just survive, or use because we feel like if we don't use them we won't survive. I can't imagine what that's like, and I imagine it's not an easy life to have to live that kind of partially never being completely authentically yourself.
You alright?
No, I just got a little headache.
Who is you, man?
Who, me?
Them fronts. That car. Who is you, Chiron?
I'm me, man. I ain't trying to be nothing else.
Remember the last time I saw you?
For a long time, try not to remember. What about you?
Me? I got a little Kev. Got this job. Another 18 months probation. I ain't got no worries, man.
You the only man that's ever touched me. I haven't really touched anyone since.
So much of the time I think I always try to like look at things as whether or not there's a good ending or a bad ending, and I think that's actually a really naive and stupid thing to do, because I don't think you can do that with a lot of films, really, to say whether or not it's a good ending, especially this one. And I think here you just have an ending of a story which is just a reality. It's like a brief moment of like relief, a moment in which he can just be touched by someone and he can be himself. And I think that's a really key point in that, is that what he's showing Chiron able to do that again. But that doesn't mean he's going to be able to do that again, for the rest of his life.
What would you like to see? You just want to know like what he does next, like whether he goes back to his previous
I kind of
life,
want to know what he does next, because I feel like you want to know whether someone is able to take the steps to live the life they want to live.
Because that in itself is a role model for people watching the movie, I guess.
Yes. Part of me kind of knows that's not what this film was about. This film was about learning the truths of what some people's lives are like, and the harsh reality of what that is. In a way, it's an acceptance, really, because he probably does go back to the life he had before.
I guess Kevin kind of has that like realistic happy ending.
Well, the thing with Kevin is that he says in that moment, I have no worries. You know, were we to believe that actually Kevin is someone who, through it all, has been able to accept who he is in his identity, both in his sexuality, his masculinity, you know, his blackness, whatever it is, he's okay with it. It is a film that every person should watch.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Let's talk about this bloody movie.
Please comment.
Share
Share
what your takeaways as well.
Absolutely. There'll be 1,000 things that we haven't even touched.
There's restrictions of doing a video like this in this format as well.
Yeah, that's true, actually. You know, we could literally have gone on for this for ages, but there's a limited window. Yeah. But yeah, that is Moonlight.
That is Moonlight.
Probably not as chipper a video as we usually have.
Well,
but I think
it's hard to be chipper about like very serious and kind of thought-provoking topics.
Top tier.
Top tier, yeah.
Top tier.
Yeah.
Oscar worthy, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of representation that we need to see a lot more.
Those non-generic stories, I think, are so important, especially now as we have kind of this. It's almost like this bank now of existing literature and TV and movies, a lot of which cover like your entry-level queer story. So to have now movies like this that focus on much more specific individual stories is going to really help lots of people out there who aren't going to associate with those like generic stories, but will perhaps see glimpses of their own experiences in movies like this.
Yeah, movies that represent the diversity of the world we live in. Even in just for the queer community, movies that represent us all and aren't just the same old shit. Thank you so much. We're glad to be back. Also, happy Pride Month!
Yeah, happy Pride Month!
We didn't actually say that in the last one, but yes, happy Pride Month.
Was it June when we did the last one?
Oh, that's true. To all our brothers and sisters out there, happy Pride Month.
Yes.
And
anyone in between. I mean, we were at Trans Pride at the weekend.
Oh,
that
yes.
That was so much fun.
Yes, if you were at Trans Pride at the weekend, let us know, because we had a great time.
We did.
It's
lovely being out there supporting
beautiful event.
Our community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, subscribe. Stay tuned for more shit,
content.
Really. Yeah, content. We've got plenty more things coming in the pipeline.
There's a couple of music videos as well that we know you all love, because you seem to go absolutely mad about them, but so do we, so that's fine. So yes, we look forward to seeing you soon. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.